In accordance with Section 5
In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Before we salute our flag, I would like to take a moment of silence and solidarity to the people in Ukraine, desperately fighting for their lives and their freedom. Please all stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Prupus? Deputy Mayor Thaw-Eglow?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Miggins?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. As previously announced, I request the Township Committee consider revising the agenda this evening to move the public comment period to earlier in the agenda and prior to consideration of our consent agenda resolutions. The Township is reviewing our rules of order, and it will come before the committee at a future meeting for consideration. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the December 7th, 2021 regular Township Committee minutes?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Are we approving the consent agenda resolutions as well when you said that? No, Mr. Brewer? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's perfectly fine. I'll start again. May I have a motion to approve the December 7th, 2021 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the December 7th, 2021 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the December 21st, 2021 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. May I have a motion to approve the December 21st, 2021 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. May I have a motion to approve the December 22, 2021 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Terrific. Thank you. Reports. Ms. Eglow, why don't we start with you on reports,
Okay, thank you.
please? Thank you.
Mr. Vinayak and I met with Mr. McDonald and the CFO, the Finance Committee. Millburn is in very good shape. We have healthy fund balances. Millburn Short Hills local municipal tax levy will remain at 0 again. Combining these two items, we are and have the ability to start looking at some important 2022 capital projects. But I did bring up at our meeting that, because we do have this healthy fund balance, we need to start looking at our infrastructure of our municipal buildings. Give you an example, Alex said that he would start looking at maybe a grading score for our buildings. People aren't realizing that our buildings are very old. They're not in good condition. We have plastic on the windows in here. Our bathrooms need to be refurbished, but it's very expensive because we have to follow different rules than you would for your home. There's just a laundry list of problems. The fire station, the police station are in need of constant and substantial maintenance. Also Gero Park, Bauer Center, all of our buildings. So whereas we have a wonderful handout that Millburn's local municipal tax levy is the lowest of all our neighbors. But as I said at the meeting, is that because we're not doing anything? We are holding all the money in fund balances, which is wonderful. But now's the time for a plan, a redevelopment plan, area needs studies, the things we really need to be doing, because if we don't do this in 2025, when our second round or third round of fair share housing, we don't want fair share housing to take whatever municipal lots we have left. And that is a true fear of mine. And I believe that we should be seriously looking about using these monies for a capital projects. So redevelopment study, area need, things that should be done. Next, the Taylor Park Committee, MKW, met with several of our subcommittee members. Let me say again, there is no discussion of putting a stage there. We have said that several times up here. There is no plan yet. There are no drawings. There's no decision of what will happen to the roses. We had our meeting, which was a private meeting for the subcommittee, and a resident just happened by happenstance to come by and talked about her desire to keep the roses. And Mayor Miggins, you did speak and you said, don't worry, we're not moving them. We don't know what we're doing with that area until we have our public meeting. So, and also Ms. Volavon, who sits on the Shade Committee, she did get in touch with us and she was concerned about the elm tree. Let it be said, that was one of the first things we discussed when we were on the site. We are not removing the elm tree. In fact, MKW and Tom Doty, who is the shade tree, was at our meeting. And what their desire would be is to remove the asphalt for a few reasons. It actually is an unhealthy base around that beautiful elm tree. And it's not ADA compliant, it's very steep. So for all of those reasons, the elm tree is protected. Okay, these are things we really need to get out there. So it will improve the situation of the elm tree. There will be a public presentation. Mr. Molman will give us that date. And that is to bring the entire community in. And again, there are no drawings. There are no plans. We don't know what MKW is going to present. The goal is to enhance this area for the betterment and the space for everybody, all of our 21,000 residents. Just quick things we talked about. They'll be doing a preliminary survey. They'll be looking at elevations, hydrology, drainage, surface stormwater, the noise, the views in and out of the park, the comfort within the space, what we can provide in that space utilizing that entire area. Oh, something they brought up that was really interesting, the orientation of the northwest winds in the winter and the southeast summer breezes. It's really important that we have the right plantings there that are compatible with the town and native plantings. We met with the joint rec. Sanjeev, you might want to add more. It seems that the JFK for possible fields is off the table because we need that for the DPW site. I hope we can talk about that later. The assets have to be moved up there. We do need more turf fields, but it's complicated. Example, Millburn Middle School has that underground geothermal system. It's not working. I don't know if they're going to spend huge dollars to reuse it, to get rid of it, but it's in the way. You can't have it there for turf fields. The Paper Mill Playhouse field has a retaining wall issue. Also big money. So there's a lot of things. They are very cognizant that we need fields. The question is how, where, how much. They talked about turfing behind the high school. There's environmental issues. There's drainage issues. There's just a lot that goes into it. And lastly, I want to say that I had the honor on 2/2/22 to perform a wedding for Arlene and Terry, who have both grew up in this town, 45 years of sweethearts, and they're now officially wedded. And it was fun. We had a few weddings on 2/2/22, and Arlene and Terry were pronounced man and wife, husband and wife, at 2:22 in the afternoon. So that was really fun. So yeah, so that'll do my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. And note that we don't own any of these fields. The only field we own is half a field by the library. All the fields are owned by, is that correct, Mr. Benayak? All the fields are owned by the Board of Ed?
Yeah, the one that we just, or Ms. Eglo just spoke about, GFK Expressway.
Yeah.
It was actually not the rec committee call to put that on hold. It is on hold because we are talking about, I don't even know why we have it on hold, because we have already discussed part of the DPW going on that side along with the field.
Mhm.
So, but I guess as long as the affordable housing conversation are going, until then, probably it's on hold, but in my mind, it's clear, Salt Dome and the part of parking lot, if that goes there, which was already in the plan, field can still go in there, so.
Perfect.
I don't know if that's
Do you,
accurate though.
excuse me, do you have any other reports for us this evening? Mr.
Yes.
Yes, thank
Mayor
you.
Megan. Thank you. We, as Ms. Eglo just mentioned, about the finance subcommittee, it was a good meeting. We are in a healthy shape. We have put, and our CFO and our PA will do the presentation later, but we have increased the spend on the roads. We have increased the reserve for fire equipment. We are looking into flood mitigation as we have a committee. We have the flood mitigation committee meeting tomorrow. We're meeting the first 30 minutes. It's an internal meeting, not a public one yet. 2 weeks later, it'll be a public meeting. We're meeting with Tetra Tech, just the committee, on the home elevation program. And then that company, Tetra Tech, will also talk to the resident on Thursday night at 7 p.m. for only those residents who are interested in elevating their home and they have filled up the forms. So reminder to all the residents, if they are interested, please make sure you fill up the form and submit it so you can attend those meetings on Thursday at 7 p.m. Before that, flood mitigation team will be meeting with the company, and they are being used as a consultant for us to file our application to the state Department of Emergency Management. We have our joint committee meeting as well for rec. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinayak. Mr. Wasserman, do you have any
Uh,
reports for us this evening?
Yes, I do.
Thank
Mayor.
you.
And I just want to add on to what Mr. Vinayak said about our flood mitigation committee. I think after some time, we're actually making a lot of headway into some of these, into some of these programs and issues that we've been trying to deal with for many years. And so I'm very proud of the work the committee is doing, and I want to thank them for working so hard. They're really spending a lot of our committee members. You'll see them going around on the weekends, looking under bridges and tunnels and spending a lot of their time on this. So I just want to thank them. Also, in terms of Explore Millburn, I want to welcome Amanda Dean to Millburn. She's our new marketing and events manager, and we're very excited to have her join Steve Grillo. I think she's going to be a huge asset to the township, to the businesses, and I think she's going to do a great job. We're really happy to have her. And then just some other things for Explore Millburn. This Saturday, March 5th, in conjunction with the Chinese Association, Millburn will be celebrating the Lunar New Year from 12 o'clock to 3 p.m. in the downtown. Also on March 6th, March 4th, we're going to have the 4th 5K and dog walk from 9 a.m. On, and that's happening in South Mountain, I guess on Broadway Avenue. March 10th, the Icebox Cryotherapy Arthritis Awareness Night, 5 p.m. on Morris Turnpike. And also March 12th, Tonino Cigar Ribbon Cutting Mixer, 4 p.m. On Upper Millburn Avenue. Welcome Tonino Cigars to Millburn. On April 2nd, Strolls Shop Saver event, 6 p.m. downtown between Main and Whittingham. April 9th, Taylor Park Egg Hunt, April 9th at 9 a.m. So kids, get your egg hunt ready. April 30th, Founders Day celebration from 11 to 3. This is something that's really exciting. We had a meeting on this morning. It's going to be a huge celebration throughout the township. I have a handout that's not really in color, but there's going to be for Founding Day, there's going to be historical tours and demonstrations. By the way, it's on Saturday, April 9th. There's going to be a music program, a cleanup for the township, a arts program for the kids. And so please come and stay local, stay with us on April 30th and celebrate Millburn's founding. And that should be a lot of fun. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brewer, any reports from?
No reports from Wayne.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. McDonald, do you have any reports for us?
No reports, Mayor.
Terrific, thank you. And I can report on the library because I think that's important. There is supply chain issues with some of the things coming into the library. So they will stay at the Annie Says site for now, for at least the next month, at least through March. And they are extending their hours. So they'll be open starting next week, 4 evenings a week, Monday through Thursday, 10 to 7:45. And then they'll be open Friday and Saturday, 10 to 5, and then Sunday, 1 to 4:45. And they're hoping to be all moved in by the end of March. They're doing some flooring next week, so they're very excited about that. It looks really nice. And because there was a delay, they're going to delay their book sale. So the book sale is moving to June 2nd. There'll be a pre-sale Thursday, June 2nd, and then Saturday and Sunday, the main sale, and then a bag sale, June 6th through 8th. And you can start dropping off your books on May 9th. There'll be a drop-off bin by the elevator inside the lobby, and they'll be taking drop-offs from May 9th through the 21st. And lastly, there is a fireside book chat, and it's on March 7th. And something new, it's a graphic novel for those who don't know what that is, and I did not. A graphic novel is, they use sequential art to tell a story in comic book form. Interesting. This story is going to be about Kent State, so just so you know, and that's on, so very interesting, on March 7th. And that's my reports. We will have someone speaking from the Environmental Commission later about bamboo. That is all. So there you go. Thank you. Okay. We're off. Public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and address and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option available. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click Raise Hand button. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. Whenever an audience or committee member reads verbatim from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the Township Clerk's office at townclerk@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. Each individual will be given 1 opportunity to make their public comment. Please be patient, and we will address each member of the public that wishes to speak. This is a business meeting, and please do not address professionals or staff directly, and please direct all comments to me. A reminder that we are all neighbors and personal attacks will not be tolerated. I will now open the public comment period.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. Today is March 1st, 2022. Today we mourn the demise of our downtown movie theater. Tonight, I will not berate or scold our local government body. Prior to the meeting, I submitted a heads-up agenda memo. I do not discriminate. I submitted similar memos to the city of Newark and the city of Orange Township. Unlike here, earlier today, the Orange BA spoke with me about the agenda memo that I submitted to them. In orange, prior to the meeting, they take the position that they post on their public, city council public website, all questions submitted by the public prior to the meeting. I submit that we should be doing the same thing. Yesterday, Mr. Brewer, my name is Attorney Feld. I'd like to introduce myself to you. This morning, at approximately 4:23 a.m., Mr. Brewer and myself received an invitation from the Superior Court to attend an arbitration to discuss the validity of the expanded appointed 5-district SID under state law.
Mr. Feld, I'm here.
I'm talking to Mr. Wasserman because
I know, but please direct it to me,
All
sir.
right,
Thank you
but
very
we
much.
have an
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you.
On Sunday, I'm scheduled to have a chat with the local Democratic Party about swim lanes, the rule lane, fairness, equality, justice, and democracy. I want to compliment our mayor for at the beginning of the meeting, for many people who were not here, that you spoke in encouragement of the people in the Ukraine. I want to dedicate the remaining time I have, which is about a minute, to those pro-democratic patriots risking their lives as we speak in the Ukraine, Russia, Hong Kong, mainland China, and other hotspots in the world. My family left the Ukraine, my maternal grandfather's side, around 1905 because of pogrom in the Ukraine. The NAACP was created by Hebrews because of the pogroms that occurred in Ukraine. My brother every year, regarding Rosh Hashanah, makes a pilgrimage because he's ultra-Orthodox to the Ukraine. I ask everyone in the remaining time to stand up in support of all those other pro-democratic parties and patriots in the world that are risking their lives. With my remaining time, if anyone wants to join me in standing in support. Thank you, Mr. Vignac. And I am wearing blue and gold in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Hi, Jay Morielli, 1 Claremont Drive. First of all, thank you for moving the comments from the public up to the beginning of the meeting. I think that's a fantastic gesture, so thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I've got 2 items I'd like to discuss tonight. First, this Thursday, there will be a live stream discussion on New Jersey municipal governments on Happy Millburn at 7:30. This will be moderated by Millburn Township resident Tom Hildner and will feature Mark Pfeiffer from the Rutgers Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy. This is a nonpartisan educational event for those with the desire to understand the forms and working of New Jersey municipal governments. If you've ever wondered why some towns have elected mayors, some towns have nonpartisan elections, some allow IRR, initiative, referendum, and recall, some vote by ward, then this is the event for you. I encourage any members of the public or town administration interested in learning more about these topics to join. Secondly, and at the risk of being admonished over, quote, being one of the same people asking the same question every meeting, I will ask for a 3rd time about the overlay zones and the zoning ordinances. And let me start by reading paragraph 18 of the Fair Share Housing Settlements, and I will quote, as an essential term of this agreement, within 120 days of the court's approval of this agreement and the entry of an order approving this agreement following a fairness hearing, the township shall introduce an ordinance or ordinances providing for the amendment of the township's affordable housing ordinance and zoning ordinance to implement the terms of this agreement and the zoning contemplated herein. That's from the settlement. So my questions, which the mayor asked at the last meeting that I emailed in, which I did that evening, remain. Will the ordinances be developed to address building such requirements as building heights, setbacks, green space, parking requirements, servicing requirements, rooftop decks, noise restrictions, and other zoning requirements in these applicable zones? Will they be developed? Secondly, what will be the process for developing these ordinances, and will there be any individual or group representing the interest of residential property owners in this process? We know that commercial property owners have a big say in the process. We only ask that residential property owners be given an equal voice at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morreale. Do you want to go to the? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jane Greenwald. I live at 8 North Beechcroft Road in Short Hills. But I'm speaking today on behalf of the Shade Tree Board, the Millburn Short Hills Shade Tree Board. And first of all, I want to thank the township and the township committee for their continuing efforts to work on the preservation of our town's historic trees. I was happy to hear that, and I've been hearing that all along. And in particular, our American elms. And the reason for my speaking tonight is to make the public aware of these wonderful treasures that the town is taking a role in preserving. They were once very plentiful, American elms, but due to the Dutch elm disease, we have about 35 remaining trees in the town, which are treated every year by our forester and by our town. To protect the trees, we are safeguarding an important historic, environmental, and cultural landmark of our township and the country. Every tree is valuable. As an example of one of those valuable trees is the large, over 200-year-old American elm at the entrance to Taylor Park by the Memorial Boulder. Our township forester estimates that tree to be over 200 years old, perhaps older. This tree has the potential to live hundreds of years. The leafy crown of the elm extends out over our rose garden with sturdy roots that extend at least as far as the crown. Large trees contribute immensely to stormwater and erosion control. Just a little bit information about the elms. They are native to North America. It's a food source to butterflies, such as the painted lady, eastern comma, and mourning cloak, as well as several types of moth. They provide support to the bottom of the food web. Notable American elm trees are the Liberty Tree in the Boston Commons, which was the rallying point of the American Revolution, and of course, our lovely elm in Taylor Park. It's the grand dam of trees in America. And again, I want to thank the town and the township committee for their support of all the historic trees in our township. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greenwald. Dr. Fabian?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Yes, sorry about that.
Board. I've been doing a little bit of a deep dive into the Fair Share Housing Center and the people involved with them over the past 10 to 15 years. And I've hired a private investigator to do a deeper dive on where the money is coming from and where it's going. Their contributions to their organization in the last 10 years have been principally the same. A lot of the builders, a lot of the attorneys, a lot of the flip-flopping of the township planners and those who are becoming special masters have created a cabal. This is a cottage industry which they have created. I want to put them on notice that they are being investigated. And I can't say enough on the fact that this is a self-perpetuating organization. It's very similar to the JCAH for hospitals. They come into a hospital, they find a problem, they try to negotiate. They say you're okay, they come back 2 years later and define the definitions all change. My biggest problem with this is donations are coming from these communities to destroy themselves. My suggestion to the township committee, if you're going to give this to a builder for $1, I would say, since the Fair Share Housing Center is a 501c3 organization, give them the land, make them own it, make them develop it on a dump site, put their name on it, and hire the builder. Let them incur all the expense. Nobody has done this to that organization. And believe me, there'll be a big change. They are extortionists. They come in and they tell you you need 2,000 units, but if you give them this or that, we'll cut it down to 300. And there's some follow-up. There are some articles out of Washington, D.C. back in 2016 with follow-up on what happens with some of these fair share centers. And it's not good unless the income is mixed middle to low income. High income with low income doesn't work. Either does all low income. And if anybody wants a copy of that afterward, I can present it to them. So I think this is a cabal. Face it, fight it.
Thank you, Doctor.
Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I want to say thank you to the members of the community who are reaching out to gather aid for the Ukrainian people suffering horribly from this Russian invasion. We have some amazing people in this community. I want to concur with Mr. Felds, Dr. Fabian's, and also Jay Moriali's comments this evening. I want to encourage our residents and taxpayers, as well as all of you, TC members, to attend the March 3rd event that Jay has organized. We have a cross-section of people who are really interested in the subject, and I hope you all listen. Mayor Miggins, you were responsible for the memorial erected on Crescent Park near the Short Hills train station. Through Oprah, I obtained a single page of the Crescent Park deed. I don't know why the entire deed wasn't sent to me, but what it said is that no building or structure of any kind whatsoever shall or may be erected upon the above lands. So my question is, why was this memorial erected there? What will be done to rectify the fact that the deed was not adhered to? Will the Taylor Park deed be examined before any plan is finalized for the Gateway project? The second question I have is, why was the model for the Upton for the fair share housing negotiation not adhered to, not followed? Why wasn't the 2018 declaratory judgment followed? Millburn lost effectively 4 years and our goodwill with fair share housing, although after what I just heard, maybe not. Why are we paying another planner to redo work that was already done in 2018? Our tax dollars are going to planners, attorneys, fair share housing because of mistakes that have been made by the township committees successively over the last 4 years. And after the fact, on March 10th, residents will finally be given one opportunity to do exactly what. There's a session, but we don't know what the agenda is. We also don't have the option for a virtual participation, which you do have for the Taylor Park Rose Garden session. So I'd like to ask that that be also organized so that everybody in the community has the chance to participate, since this is such a fundamental change to our community that's taking place. Also, can you clarify the statement you made, I think it was last July, that there would be 14 to 17 new students coming to the schools from the Upton? It's my understanding that there are at least 75 students. They have their own bus route to accommodate the many numbers that are coming from there. Given how off the mark those projections were for this one development, what can we expect going forward? What research work is being done to project with the BOE and superintendent the impact on the schools of the numerous developments coming out of the fair share housing settlement and the overlays, which will also be bringing many more students into the schools? Can you be specific as to what discussions are going on? On the subject of conflicts of interest, I received an Oprah response today stating that there is no record that exists regarding a legal opinion that you have no conflicts. You stated, "Let me be crystal clear, I have no conflicts." You're not an attorney and there's no legal opinion stating such. So I'm asking, how did you conclude that? I'm puzzled as to how that conclusion was reached.
Jess?
Hi there.
Good evening.
Good evening. Perry Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue in Short Hills. So at the February 15th, 2022 TC meeting, the mayor doesn't recuse herself from voting on the SID 2022 budget and the assessment role. And the mayor poses as no conflict. Isn't that what you said? And has there been an opinion that could be produced to the public? However, the very next day, she and her business had a post on Explore, advancing her biz. No conflict, or is this a quick pro? Just like Committeewoman Prupus, who storms out of the room that meeting. Why? So she doesn't have to vote? In addition, why does the SID executive director refuse to disclose who went and who met with the official business at the roundtables, major developers, property owners, and realtors? Can you request that he would submit any form of invitation to such meeting by way of email, text, or paper? Why is the SID executive director involved with every matter of this town, such as other township business meetings, court hearings, and more? Why isn't he solely focused on the 5 districts? This is oversight. Is this part of his job description, or is he auditioning for a new position? Lastly, I found it appalling that this body, who has full control over this entity, would allow Mr. Grillo to arrogantly and disrespectfully respond to stakeholders who posed questions or were in opposition to the ordinance 2561-20, the SID 2022 budget, and the assessment roll. These stakeholders are not only responsible to pay for this assessment, but subject to any penalties within the ordinance, but pay his salary. This is outrageous and irresponsible of this body to ignore the lack of buy-in from the stakeholders. And I would ask the mayor, are you going to be subjected to the assessment, or is it your landlord? And lastly, he also stated he's looking forward to the mediation and that the board will be proven as a legal entity. It is shameful, once again outrageous, that this would take a litigation with a court order as of today for mediation. This has been a hoax, a waste of everyone's hard-earned money and time, and you all know it. Shame on you, and especially you, Mr. Vignac. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin.
Al Carlin, 246 Millburn Avenue, Apartment E, Millburn, New Jersey. I sent some emails to Alex today. I hope he will follow up. I'm sure he will. Did you get the emails? Yes, you did. Okay, concerning apartment dwelling, multi-family dwelling. I think there will be more in Millburn. I think it's important for compliance. I think that Mr. Como and others should take a look at certain multifamily dwellings for certain issues. Another thing, when I can't sleep at night, I read reports, I read certain things. How many people have read the 50 pages that Mr. Feld sent as far as the 50-page, what would you call it? The certification court. It's very, very well written. I used to read Federal Register to put me to sleep, and now I read some of his articles, and it is really, really quite detailed, and I suggest that everyone read it. I don't know if anyone has read it verbatim, but it concerns everyone there. I disagree with some of the comments about attorneys. I disagree with the memorandum of August 10th, 2020. I've never been to law school, but I do read, and some of the questions and some of the government ethics laws which he cites, I question whether they are pertinent to the orange, the what is it, Feld versus Feld, Jeffrey Master in HTBT 60/1995. Whatever. As far as the fair share, that is a very, very important issue. To say that this 6 years ago, why someone mentioned why didn't the deputy mayor do something, goes further back than that. This goes back 10 years, 15 years. Come on, the town knew about it. Let's look at the historical commission here. Everyone knew about fair share housing, and it's known as, let's call it what it is. It's called, let's keep certain people where here and other. Vauxhall used to be part of Millburn. Everyone knows that. I'm sure everyone knows that because it's history. So let's face it, people want certain people in certain areas. Would it be so bad if New Jersey took over for the fair share? Maybe not. I don't know. But let's face it. What is this? What company is it? RMP? They had to settle. They lost a case. What is it? Uber 2 RPM versus RPM Development. What was it? Discrimination. They had a problem with discrimination. They lost. So you cannot discriminate against who goes into fair share housing or anything. I'm sorry about that, but I thank you.
Thank
and
you,
I
Mr.
do
Carlin.
appreciate all of your good work.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Okay, I'll now close the public comment period. Would any of our professionals or committee members like to address any of the comments that they heard this evening?
I'd like to just
Yes, Mr.
ask
Vanayak.
a question or there was a comment made on the fair share housing. Instead of giving it to a builder, give it to the fair share housing folks. I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but what would that do?
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, maybe later, if you could email that to me, that'll be helpful for my understanding. I would like to understand.
No, sorry. No, thank you. Your mic, Andy.
Okay, I can address that briefly. Fair share doesn't, they don't sue and say that we, Fair Share, want the property to build it, and they're not in the business of building. They are in the business of taking a position on what they believe municipalities' obligations are. So they're not going to take it and they're not building, they can't, but they didn't go to court to say, we want to build it. So
Right.
it's kind of a misnomer, it's kind of a red herring and misses the point.
So all these conversations, I was not directly a part, but indirectly very much a part of. What I have experienced in the fair share housing is it was more of a push through mandate rather than listening to us and negotiate. And I've said this several times, or at least my experience, that every time we tried to do something, it was, nope, you got to do this. And it was, no, I don't want to vote for it. No, you got to do this. So I don't know. It's like a lose-lose situation here. There's nothing that comes out good from it. I am absolutely against or feel bad for those kids who will live in that one building and go to middle school or high school and be called that you are from that building. Anyways, life in school is tough. But I'm not ready to give the whole DPW side to them and have just a few more apartments. In 2025 to 2035, there's another session that will come on the fair share. So I'm at a loss here. Everything I read, everything I look into, it's always a loose proposition. I think there's something that needs to be done at a state or a federal level to fix this. I'm not opposed to having people with low income in the town, but the way they deal with the town, and it could be, again, I don't want to blame, and that is the last thing I want to do, is blame our previous administration, because they did what they thought is the best thing for the township as well. Fair share housing came in strong on us, and they didn't want to hear anything that we proposed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Vanayak?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Eglow?
Thank you. First to Ms. Greenwald, I hope you're feeling comfortable that the elm tree is going to be protected and hopefully have a better situation. Mr. Moriali, thank you for sharing your information. I will definitely be attending that. I think anyone who thinks they want to run for office or has any interest should really understand what we do up here, why we have a business administrator who makes most of the decisions somehow. As I said at the last meeting, I was upset with you, Ms. McDonald, because there was something I thought should have been shared. As far as the density, I wasn't part of that subcommittee. They did say if you put 75 units in one place, they'll try to keep the density down elsewhere. I think it's a terrible decision. I still stand by what I said. We should have gone back to fair share housing and said, we can look at developing the whole site because they're going to take it in 2025. And we can, it's very difficult that we are not controlling this town's destiny through our own planning. And I don't even know if we're doing the best we can. And there are too many people living in this cabal. The 911 memorial, that did cost $40,000. That was presented to the town mayor as to be paid for by donations. I don't know, we got $1,000 in donations, so the town wound up paying $39,000. I don't know where those funds came from, Mr. McDonald. I don't understand if we are still going to be trying to get donations. Then I find out it's not a deed restricted area. It was from the original person, Billy, I can't think of his last name right now, the officer who got this piece of steel. I know their original committee wanted it placed on the green field between the library and the first aid building. Maybe we should put it where they wanted it 20 years ago. We rushed it through, maybe because it was the 20-year anniversary. We didn't wait for the donations. I think that's a little misrepresentation. I don't know where that $40,000 came from. And to Mr. Feld, I have asked, fact from fiction, from fantasy, swim lanes. You put me in lane C, I don't swim. I don't understand really proxy by,
No.
whatever, I
No,
don't
no.
swim. I don't
Excuse me.
think our township committee government is in swim lanes. I don't think our residents are in swim lanes. I'd like to know fact from fantasy, from fiction, what's going on. I want an update on Mr. Feld's legal bills, like what is in his column, what is in Mr. Feld's lane?
Get that every month.
Excuse me, Mr. Feld, please, sir.
I want to know, you now put it on one of your emails or your site, you are suing the town for an $850 million bond. Where's that money? I don't know. But you are suing all 5 of us.
Yeah.
Mr. Feld,
So I don't even know what's going on. I think there are a lot of questions. I don't swim. I don't know about the lanes you're inventing, concocting. I don't know what your proxy by anything is.
anything else, Ms. Edlow?
I'll save my other items for old business.
Okay, great, terrific. Mr. Wasserman?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, I do want to respond to one thing that we meet regularly with the Board of Education, and we did, in terms of fair share housing, we did have a debrief. I don't remember exactly the date, but we did have a full debrief. I believe Ms. McManus was there, and we did go over all the numbers with them very carefully, so they could do their modeling based on the settlement agreement. So that was something that I did want to mention. We do meet regularly with them, and I think that's really important that they understand what's coming. The other thing is that I just want to make it clear that when we were negotiating with Fair Share, we had a very, very limited time in the end in terms of signing the settlement agreement. And the one thing that was always against us, and I don't know if people really understand this, that if we didn't have a settlement agreement signed by a very, very specific date, it was over the summer, then we were at risk of losing our immunity. And this is more of a legal term, but I know that other towns, this is public record. There are other towns that have fought Fair Share. There are other towns that have fought the court on this. But I think that when you look at the settlement agreement, you also have to look at the downside that if we didn't sign the settlement agreement after all these years, if we didn't go along with the court, that we had a huge downside. And again, it's more of a legal, it's more of a legal question. But we literally had a very specific date, a time. I mean, there was one night where it was you're going to sign it or you're going to lose your immunity, and I think that was something that I want to make clear to people that was what we were up against. And if we would have lost our immunity, you can debate what that means, but I understand there could have been several builder remedy lawsuits. We could have lost our planning, as other towns have. So I just wanted to throw that out from my perspective, that's something that we were very cognizant of in terms of our negotiations with Fair Share.
Terrific. Mr. McDonald, do you have anything to add?
I do, Mayor.
Thank you.
So I believe Ms. Pasternak had made a comment about a method which was used when the Upton had come to the township. I had heard reference to another document that outlined what the township had done in previous efforts on affordable housing. I'd be very interested to see that and understand that. Just from my perspective, having been involved and hear when the Upton came in and understanding exactly how that process went. Unfortunately, I think that process went out the window or moved on after we received a builder's remedy lawsuit in the Silverman case. And unfortunately, that previous method no longer existed for the township.
Okay,
Mr. Feld.
Mr. Feld.
So the other thing that I wanted to add to committee Deputy Mayor Eglo's comments were, just going back to the 9/11 memorial. Certainly, we had passed and it kind of ties in with your question about what occurred with Mr. Feld's lawsuit that went against the township and the committee members. As you may recall, last year we passed a capital bond ordinance in which we had 3 items. One was the flex parking removal, a DOT grant for Short Hills Avenue to be milled and paved and sidewalks reconstructed, as well as the 9/11 memorial, in which we allocated $50,000 for. Upon Mr. Feld's suit, that money was no longer available to the township. And so we had to find ways to allocate those funds to do that work. In particular, at this point in time, we no longer have those funds available to do Short Hills Avenue. We will have to put in a Chapter 159 to the Township Committee to add that line to the budget so that we can complete that work as scheduled in 2022 from the intersection of Millburn Avenue to the Crescent. Again, that's a mill and pave of Short Hills Avenue as well as some sidewalk improvements. So you are correct. That project was stated to be potentially funded by donations. We were hopeful to get donations. We did not receive donations or as many as we had thought. To answer your question, I hope that people will, continue to contribute if they feel the desire to. But that money was allocated from the general fund, just to answer that question. So, and just some clarification on what Mr. Feld was suing us for, and what is happening with that particular issue. That bond ordinance is tied up and cannot be utilized. So we will be putting something before the Township Committee in the near future.
So
Excuse me, Mr. Feld, please, sir.
So the flex, I'm sorry.
Hold on, Mr. Feld, please. Mr. Feld, please, thank you.
So the flex parking was 150, which was an amazing thing that I'm.
Mr. Feld, Mr. Feld.
The flex parking project cost $157,000.
Okay.
The ordinance said 450. Speak the truth.
The memorial was 50.
Correct.
So was the Short Hills project like $700,000?
No, it was more like 350,000.
Oh, there were also trees. We were gonna plant some trees.
No, this was a sidewalk at the Crescent.
Okay,
And there was the reconstruction of the road. As you know, it's in pretty bad shape now.
yes.
Some curb replacement, as well as some additional sidewalk improvements up by the Rackets Club, connecting the pedestrian mobility from Hobart Road to the Short Hills train station.
So because of the lawsuit, that project that would have been, benefited all those residents and vehicles didn't get done.
Correct.
So that's
Well,
really sad.
And we have to find a new method to make that happen.
Okay, but we are in very good shape and we have a list of all of these 2022 capital improvements.
Correct.
So I mean, there's things we can do. And I hope there's a lot more things we do, like definitely look into our municipal buildings.
Mr. McDonald, do you have anything else to?
No, that's it, man.
I do.
Question from Mr. McDonald.
You may, go ahead.
So there was a comment made that we had an ordinance of $450,000 and it cost us $157,000. Ordinance or bond, whenever we are going through some kind of project, we put aside a fund or money for that project, we allocate that. Now, if it comes below that, we don't have to spend that much.
Correct.
So we put aside $450,000, but we spend and the money was brought back to the township. It stayed back. to the
Depending
township.
on, yeah, depending on what sort of debt is issued, whether it's a bond anticipation note or a long-term bond,
Right.
or I'm sorry, bond anticipation note or a capital ordinance.
So it wasn't that we gave the money away because it cost us less. It stayed back with us.
Yeah, I mean, that money, the only amount that was spent was the amount that the project cost.
So the comment of, we made the ordinance of 450 and spend was 157. This is the clarity there.
That there is a clarity.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Wasserman?
yeah, Mayor, I also wanted to touch on something that Deputy Mayor Eglov mentioned. You know, when we talked about the Gateway project, I just want to make it very clear, and I've said this before in previous meetings. You and I met with the Rose Garden Committee, and we gave them a certain assurance that the Rose Garden would be intact, although the surrounding grounds might be moved. But we gave them an assurance about them being intact. So when you say, I wasn't the only one at the meeting. So when you say that we'll see what happens, that wasn't my understanding at that meeting. I just
Committeeman
want to
Wasserman.
clarify that.
I wish Ms. Poop was here tonight. We never said anything was gonna stay intact anywhere. We don't know. You, I believe, and we can find it, we changed the wording, say that there, preposition, there will be a rose garden. The RFP, whatever, it
But
did
that's
not
not what
say
you just said.
there would be no, Mr. Wasserman, let's be clear.
No.
We do not know if the Rose Garden is gonna stay in 4 quads, if it's going to be in a different configuration. We do not know because we haven't had the presentation from MKW.
But that's
And
a lot different. That's a lot different than
It's-
saying, let's see what happens.
Well,
In
we
other
don't
words,
know, we don't
gave-
have a
We
plan.
gave the Rose Garden and those volunteers a commitment that the Rose Garden would be intact post Gateway.
No, not intact in necessarily the same 4
Okay,
quadrants.
that's, all right.
So that's a
true.
big difference, like.
But-
you know,
Excuse me.
no,
We're good,
Mayor,
we
this is
have it.
important because you did tell that resident who happened to walk by that nothing was gonna change. That wasn't fair and it wasn't.
What I explained to them was there's almost 1,000 signatures that want the Rose Garden to stay exactly where it was. And I am not in favor of desecrating the Rose Garden, absolutely not. And that has been my stand from the beginning, and I had said it from the beginning, that the Rose Garden should not be touched. If there are other improvements that need to be made at the Gateway, that's great. And by the way, we've hired them to come up with a plan. We don't have to move forward with the plan if it's not what we want. One of the things they talked about, and I was at that meeting, and that serendipitously, that woman came up out of nowhere and said, please leave these roses alone. We like to come here. There are almost 1,000 people that don't want that Rose Garden touched. And so I have to think, you have to look at the people that live in this town and say, hey, listen, there are 1,000 people. So I'm not for desecrating the Rose Garden. Mr. Wasserman, we've talked about it.
Our agreement was that there's going to be a Rose Garden, that we're going to actually enhance that area.
Correct.
That we're going to open it up for the township. And we're gonna try to work with the Rose Garden, so we don't disenfranchise 1,000 people.
Correct.
So-
Okay.
Mr.
And we
Mullin,
move on,
when-
we
when
move
is-
on.
wait, when is
No,
the
we're
meeting?
moving on
I
because
think We just wanted to, Mr. Mullin, when is
The
the
29th.
presentation?
the 29th, it will be at 7 PM at Town Hall. There will also be a Zoom function because it's in Town Hall, and we have the capabilities of doing that at Town Hall when we're doing this.
So
Okay,
wait,
terrific.
I'm sorry, where is the Fair Share Housing meeting?
That will be at the Millburn Middle School.
So there is no Zoom function,
Correct.
That's correct.
because are you expecting more people than would come for the? what
That
if
would
all
be
1,000
correct.
people would come? So that's also a little bit of,
I think you want to
inequity
have, I think that you want to have, and we'll speak to that. I think you want to have the opportunity for everyone to show up at the Millburn Middle School. This will be the first meeting. We've had other meetings, but this will be the first meeting of the 100% affordable where RPM will be presenting. And I think you want to be able to have everyone be able to come. And we don't know if there would be enough room in here if we have a large crowd. So I don't know if necessarily 1,000 people will show up at the Rose Garden Gateway meeting, but they'll have the opportunity to do it here. We don't have the opportunity to do it at the middle school.
Mayor, let me just put myself on the record. That is completely unfair to have the Rose Garden here with a Zoom function and not to have the affordable Fair Share Housing, which if you want to talk about word desecration, which is a really
Duly
strong
noted,
word.
duly noted, duly
no-
noted.
not a- I'm gonna finish, Mayor. That is a really strong word. We are possibly desecrating our downtown with a building that in the old fashioned vernacular could have been called a tenement. We're not calling it that, but we're.
Diane,
putting a
you are
seven-
out of
I
line.
am not,
You are
Mayor.
out of line.
Mayor,
You are out of line.
I take
You
that
are
word
out of
back.
line. That is
What I'm saying
disgraceful.
is, it is not fair
That is,
to not allow
we move on.
the same amount of, and with Mr.
Can
McDonald.
we take a break?
Yes,
We
we
don't
can.
have to run
Thank
away every
you.
time we have a
5 minutes.
disagreement.
Thank you.
Miss Mayor, run
And we're
away
off.
because we don't.
Mr. McDonald, did you have something else you wish to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer Mr. Moriarty's question regarding
good.
the overlay zones and when that may or may not take place. As he had stated that the township does have 120 days from the order accepting the township's fair share plan. And so certainly that was just done recently. I can't say whether there's going to be an individual inspection or process in which people can, work through that plan, or exactly what elements will be involved in an overlay. But I think it would be an excellent idea for those that are interested in that to come to the March 10th meeting at the Millburn Middle School. Again, and I just also wanted to add that, we are planning on having additional sessions in addition to that March 10th. Right now, tentatively looking at March 20th and April 7th. Certainly those would be announced in more detail once we are able to solidify it. But so for those that are concerned about it not having a virtual option, or for concern that, whatever other reasons they may be concerned about it, we are trying to get some additional sessions so that we have them in various locations, different times of day, different even I think March 20th is a weekend, so we're just trying to nail that down. So just wanted to bring that up, but certainly I think that will be an excellent opportunity for Mr. Morale to have those questions answered as well from Beth McManus.
For the overlay zones.
Correct.
Terrific.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
terrific.
so Mayor, I just want to also say that every time that Mr. Sanjeev or somebody is not happy, the gavel goes down, take a break. When I was here my first 3 years, there was a lot of disagreement, dissension. Nobody ran out of the room. We kept the meeting going. So, hello, I'm over here, Ms. Miggins. This is really, everyone says we're unprofessional. Well, if you don't let one township committee person speak, I don't even know Mr. Brewer, should I then maybe in the future go up to the podium and go as a resident and get my 3 minutes that way? Would I be allowed to speak? Because I'm really finding this so frustrating. Someone said my Facebook post said you sound frustrated and angry. I am. I can't get answers. Our residents can't get answered. I don't know how fair share housing, let me ask you, Mr. McDonald, how does this process move forward? There's so much that has to be done for this, whatever you want to label this building at our dump DPW site. The planner, the money, the dollar. How does this process move forward from here? Is it Ms. McManus? Is it Mr. Buzak? Is it topology? Is it the subcommittee that Ms. Miggins and I are still on? Is that subcommittee still valid?
Yeah, so actually what it will be is negotiating a developer's agreement with RPM. So while the question was asked of them at the previous meeting about how are you going to acquire the land, they said $1. I think that was sort of certainly what they intended, but nothing has been discussed with regard to that, right? That is going to be a function of the subcommittee, as well as there are still some design elements to look at, as well as the cost. We are looking at a financial advisor to come in and help with that negotiating process. We also would have topology be involved in that process as well. So there is a lot of work to be done, and some work that's currently underway where some of the environmental work that was completed is being assessed by RPM as they continue to kind of take a look at what their numbers might be in the sort of the initial foray or volley of the developers agreement. But yeah, so it would be that subcommittee, topology, and whoever our financial consultant is to help negotiate.
Is that the subcommittee that was made up of Ms. Miggins and myself?
Correct.
And the dollar, let's explain how that happens, is because Mr. Buzak told us when you are giving land for development is this, you don't have to go through public auction. You don't have to go through the normal channels to sell municipal land, which could be worth $5 million. So they can get it for $1.
They could. I'm not saying they couldn't. I'm just saying that them answering off the cuff at a meeting does not necessarily mean that is the route that would be taken. Now, it certainly could be that you say, well, if they don't pay $1 for it, then you're paying X amount of dollars on the other side of that. But that's not really for me to get into right here and right now. But certainly something that will be discussed during this negotiation.
Right. And the other thing I just want to ask, they also act as the landlord and management company. So they are deciding who goes in and who goes out. We have no control over that.
That is correct.
It's 100% their baby, just like the Upton has their own management lease agent.
That is
So
correct.
we will not know who's moving in that building. And I will say once again, we are not, when I went to a meeting at the league years ago, it said fair share housing should not be in the courts. The town should be controlling their destiny. I again say we should approach fair share housing and say, do we want to look at the whole site, see what other contaminants there are, and is there not a way, instead of giving it for $1, if you go through the whole site and you have L&M's plan, which you kept in your computer, which I really wish people had seen, there would be commercial revenue generating on the ground floor, and it would have been a mixed income unit. So whenever, just like the Upton, when anyone's going in the front door, nobody knows who you are. Instead, we are creating this, label it what you want, situation, and we still have the next half of the DPW. And as our planner said, in essence, we are moving all of our DPW assets to the dump, to JFK. So that field, and when we were at the rec meeting, Mr. Hogan or Mr. Healy even said, let's just pretend JFK is no longer available for fields. What else are we gonna do? So we are not controlling any of our destiny. We have a wonderful planner. And I think that we really can take a couple of weeks before we delve into this agreement and give it to RPM. I think it's a terrible idea. So it doesn't have to be a done deal yet.
Mr. McDonald, just at the Upton, they don't choose the tenants, the Piazza and Associates. They send it out to a third party. I believe RPM does the same thing. I don't think they're in charge of.
Yeah, I don't think
It's-
the actual developer is the one who.
No, it's this,
They have
they
a management.
they
corporation.
manage the property, but it's this other company, Piazza and Associates, that manage who gets chosen. And
Well,
there's,
could be chosen. I'm not sure that would be.
right, if that's them. Okay, I just wanted to be sure about that. Questions. Just a correction. At the Upton, well, first of all, if you live at the Upton, you're entitled to a bus to get to school because you're over 2 miles and 2.5 miles to the high school. So you're entitled to a bus. There's no extra buses there. And as far as the amount of students that are there are currently 41 students that live at the Upton that are currently in our schools today. There's 44 students, but 3 are in private school. So we get our numbers directly from the Upton. So if anybody has any questions, just so you know, those are the numbers. There's some younger children as well, not in the schools, but there's currently 41 children in our school district at the Upton. And I don't recall what I said in July. It could have been at that time there were 17 students because we were getting updates, I don't know, every few weeks from the Upton, how many students, how many apartments were filled. All of the Upton's at 100% let, so they've all been filled. So we don't have to worry about any other students that are going in, but just to get those numbers for the record, the right numbers out there. As far as the, if there's any legal concerns, please forward to our administrator's office and we'll pass it along to council to review. And if there's a problem, just provide the legal statute or the appropriate case law to support your findings. If you find there's some type of a conflict or such, it'd be our pleasure to be able to look it up for you, but we're not going to have our attorneys do that work. We're going to ask you to do that work and bring it to us, and then we'll check you. Okay. And then as far as the Ms. Urso, gosh, I didn't ask to be put on that Explore Millburn round of, I do my own advertising for my own business, but just so you know, I did ask the SID director not to include my information on any of my business in that. I can appreciate that. So I asked him not to do that. Just, you know, there's more than enough companies and I do my own advertising. So thank you for that. And for the record, whatever that round table was with realtors, et cetera, I wasn't at it. I think that's it for now. So we will go to consent agenda resolutions. So the Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Resolutions 22-079 through 22-084. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I would like 22-081 pulled for a separate conversation.
It's already been pulled.
Has it been pulled?
Yep, it's been pulled.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, I said, okay.
That's okay.
Here's the new
Sure.
one.
So 22-079, 80, 82, 83, 84, and 85.
Motion.
Anybody have any questions? No? Motion?
Motion.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Thought-Eglo,
Yes,
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then we have resolution 22-081, authorize the amendment to the professional service contract for historic preservation consultant services, Barton Ross and Partners LLC. Mr. McDonald, can you speak to that, please?
I can. So this is an additional $7,500 on a project that was initiated last year. And this project was for a certified local government grant to do a survey of the Short Hills Historic Park. Unfortunately, as we've gone through this project, the state has continued to have additional comments on our submission to that for that application, which has caused a significant amount of additional work for Barton and his team. And so, in speaking of Barton, we have a very tight deadline to get this work completed. And in order to receive our grant of $25,000, we need to sort of expend this additional $7,500 amount for that work. It is an important endeavor to do so because they certainly this was unanticipated, and Barton has actually agreed to do this at cost to his firm. So that is the story behind this additional $7,500. And the reason that we're doing this is obviously it becomes an amendment to his contract that was signed at the beginning of this year.
So somebody down somewhere.
Yeah, the
Changing the goalpost.
state historic preservation office.
Okay, so they just keep changing this. I see.
so this is just the Short Hills Park.
Correct.
And so he has used his $50,000 already?
24,750.
He's used that up already.
Correct, yes.
So it's only February. What's gonna happen? He's done then for the year?
March
He'll keep
30th,
asking-
March 30th is the deadline for this particular grant.
No, but what happens to Mr. Barton Ross? He'll ask for more money?
No, so.
No, for himself, for his
No,
firm.
I understand, and it is a little bit, so conceivably, we could have just paid this. Okay,
Mhm.
and then toward the end of the year, when he runs out of his not to exceed, because of the regular consultant work he does, we could have then come to the township committee and said, oh, hey, we need additional money because he's now gone past that not to exceed for his consultant work. But because this deals with a specific project and it is outside of the scope of his normal consultant work, we brought this before the township committee to approve that additional funding of $7,500 for the grant project in particular that started in February of 2021.
What's his not to exceed amount?
His not to exceed amount for his normal work is $50,000.
Okay, I think it probably would have been better to let him spend it and come back when he's run out, so we have a clearer bookkeeping of what he's doing, so I'm not in favor of this for that reason.
So, Mr. McDonald, we have approved 3 projects last year on historic preservation.
Correct.
This is one of those 3
It is.
where we were going to get the money back,
Correct.
and it's in reference to that.
Correct.
I think accounting wise is the right way to do it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 22-081?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Thought-Eglo,
No,
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we have 22-086, authorized temporary extended closure of section of Main Street. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 22-086?
yes,
Okay, Ms. Eglo?
I think April 1st is very early. It's still very cold. Have we notified all the other businesses in town that you're doing this? Goldberg's? I don't understand why we're closing it on the weekends so soon.
Deputy Mayor Eglo, there had been a revision to this.
May 6th.
Yeah, it's actually gonna be May 6th as a result of a memo that had been written by Executive Director Steve Grillo. And my initial sort of draft of that resolution did not reflect that memo. My apologies for that. It is corrected and reflected in front of the Township Committee tonight.
May 6th to June 26th.
May 6th to June 26th.
And then what happens on June 26th?
At that point, I'm sure there will, prior to that date, there will be another request to have a full closure for the summer.
Okay, so what time is it on May 6th? Is that Friday?
Correct.
What time will it be closing?
4 p.m.
And the reason for 4 p.m.?
is it's after school.
Nothing to do with the cops and DPW being offline? I thought originally we closed it because DPW goes home at 4. You wanted to have the Jersey barriers put up before they go home?
Well, I mean, that certainly plays into it. Yes.
Because the kids certainly are downtown at 4.
Mhm.
And what time does it reopen?
It'll open before, I think it's 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday, prior to the start of it.
And have all the other businesses in town, has Steve Grillo notified everybody up and down the avenue?
I can't speak to that.
Mr. Wasserman?
I believe that, I mean, I can't speak to that exactly either, but like last year, we're, you know, this is, I think that last year, if you look at the program that's in front of us now, it was successful. It was, it created a sense of community for the township. I also want to make the committee aware that I spoke to Chief Gilfetter because I wanted to know the police's stand on whether there were any problems this past year. And I received a very nice report from the chief. And I'll just quote a little bit. The police department did not have any issues with the closure of Main Street last year. We have not done any official traffic studies on the closure, but from my observations, there were not any extra accidents, but it does cause some traffic congestion during heavier periods in town. So that was from the chief. But I will tell you that with Explore Millburn, they have I think they have 30 music groups planned. They have a lot of programming for the space. And I think this past year, people loved it. I think it draws people to the whole township. Certainly when I was on the, there on the weekends last year, there were people from all the surrounding towns. And I also thought it gave a place for kids, to have a place to hang out. And this also goes with the town, with the theme of the township or the theme of the marketing, which is to stay local. You know what? Don't go to New York. Don't go to Springfield. Don't go to Chatham. Stay here in town. We have a venue for you. We have music for you. We have a lot of exciting things going on right here. And I think that is the overriding reason why we should do this, is to keep people local, shop local, dine local. And it's not only for the downtown, but those people that come to town, they visit all the, a lot of the restaurants in all the other districts. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, no, I agree. It's very successful. I think we have to be really cognizant. Traffic is back. Traffic is backing up to Parsons Hill Road, down to below ShopRite. So keep your eye on the traffic. And I know people are enjoying it. I enjoy it. Not saying it's not a bad,
And I think last year also, if I remember correctly, we gave the administrator authority, that if there were a problem, that you would have some authority to tweak it if need be.
That's correct. And the resolution does state as such.
Yeah, so you have authority. So if there's a problem, we have Mr. McDonald that'll be on top of it. And from this last year, I think it was a stunning success. And let's keep our residents here and happy.
yes. And I do see the May 6th note on here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 22-086?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Eglo,
Yes,
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ordinance 2596-22. Procedure for introducing an ordinance on first reading. I would like to present an ordinance entitled, Ordinance number 2596-22, creating Chapter 501 Affordable Housing. So the statement of purpose is to update the township's affordable housing regulations to be consistent with the terms of the settlement agreement between the township and Fair Share Housing Center, as well as with the Uniform Housing Affordability Control Rules, NJAC 5.80-26.1, COA Substantive Rules, NJAC 5.93, and the Fair Housing Act, NJSA 52-27D-301. Mr. McDonald, do you want to speak to this, please?
Yes, Mayor. So I believe it was 2 meetings ago, I had expressed to the Township Committee that there will be several ordinances as well as resolutions that will be necessary for the township's continued compliance with the settlement and actions that need to be taken. This particular ordinance will establish in our zoning code a section for affordable housing. It will outline the definitions in that. It will also speak to various elements of affordable housing and development. In particular, the administration of affordable housing, talking about how many affordable units need to be built when a development is going in. So if you're building 25 units and the next ordinance will speak to the set aside, but you wouldn't have to necessarily put an affordable unit in. But if you're building over 25 units, you need to make sure that you it keeps from building all your market rate prior to then building your affordable, so that affordable gets integrated into the mixed residential. And there's additional elements of this ordinance that speak to ensuring that those affordable units are mixed in a mixed income project. Additional elements of this establishes maximum rents and sale prices. It also talks to condominium and homeowner association fees in the event that is the case, where there are in an association, the affordable units would still have to pay 100% of the market rate fee. Speaks to affirmative marketing, which is is a resolution that is also on for tonight. Selection of occupants. It really just outlines the general administrative duties of affordable housing for the township. There will be other aspects that will be following suit with regard to our compliance. The talks about control periods for restricted rental units, and talks about a municipal housing liaison or an administrative agent, which is responsible for making sure that the township adheres to its affordable housing plan, as well as any compliance that's necessary through the settlement agreement. This is the first reading of this ordinance. This will be posted to the township's website under the clerk's page for proposed ordinances. We'll also make sure that this is up under the affordable housing page, so that those that are interested can take a look at it. And it would not be considered for adoption until the first meeting in April.
Okay, thank you. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Thal Eglo,
Abstain.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you. A procedure for, I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2597-22, an ordinance amending the land use ordinance of the Township of Millburn to amend Chapter DRZ Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance to require an affordable housing set aside consistent with the town's adopted 2021 third round housing element and fair share plan. Mr. McDonald, can you give us some insight into this ordinance?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more straightforward in the sense that this is essentially establishing the township set aside, so that if more than 5 market rate units are being produced or built, that there needs to be a 20% set aside for affordable units. So any future development in the township that is creating market rate units, let's say, a 30-unit building, they would have to set aside a minimum of 20%. This makes sure that it is codified and enforceable by the township.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed at the first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law and the item, and for the hearing and final passage on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Thal-Eglow,
Abstain.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then resolution 22-087, adopting an affirmative marketing plan for the township of Millburn. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to this resolution?
Do you want to have Mr. McDonald?
Mr. McDonald, do you want to explain?
Yeah, sure. This is an element of the settlement agreement in which the township is agreeing to affirmatively market any affordable units or affordable housing that we have in the township. And this is spelled out in a variety of ways that this should be happening, and what information should be provided about those units. Again, when we speak about an administrative agent that will be brought on for the township to assist in the affordable housing compliance and administration, they would be responsible for this affirmative marketing, which spells out several locations that the program should be posting, such as our website, the Millburn Library, and various other avenues of approach. And so this resolution spells that out and how the township would comply with affirmative marketing.
Perfect.
The builders are going to be, or management company is the one who's going to be doing the marketing. How do we get involved?
Well, again, we still have to make sure that we're marketing the affordable units in the township. Now, the buildings will also be doing it, but they're the ones that are going to be they're going to be the ones that are renting or leasing the apartments. We're not involved in any of that, but we still have to put it out there in terms of our affordable units, where they're located, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
So if they're doing all the renting, let's just be sure it's their building. They keep all the revenue from the rents. Is that how it works?
Well, yes, in particular in the mixed income model, right? Like the Upton, we're not receiving any sort, but it is a rateable. So there's a rateable base added to the township's valuation. So we don't necessarily receive a portion of their rent or anything like that. And they have their own professional that administers the affordable units. And in Piasso is, I think that's what they're called, but yeah, we don't receive any of that.
So in the affordable units, does that not count any revenue towards the town at the Upton?
Well, it counts towards the overall project in the rateable base. I don't know what percentage that necessarily counts towards. I'm sure it's minimal compared to the market rate.
Okay, so the follow-up question, in a 100% affordable, like what we're gonna have, we're not gonna label it, what we're going to have, there's no revenue for the town at all.
I don't know that to be true.
I'm
yeah.
asking, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's true or
People are
not, I
still
don't know
paying
anything.
rent.
What, Mr. Wasserman?
I was gonna say that the people that are there are still paying a rent. I mean, they're still paying a fee every month.
Right, but it's all gonna go to RPM?
That's a good question for them.
It is. It is a good question for them, and that can take many forms, whether it's that it's actually a rateable, or whether it's done through payment in lieu of taxes. I don't know. That's items that still need to be discussed.
You'll ask that in the committee.
I will. So another quick question, only because we're on the topic. I know when the Upton, and we talked about this, when Beehive, whoever goes in, not Beehive, Wells Fargo, I can't.
It's Beehive.
Yep.
It's Beehive. There's a sewer connection fee for every unit. How does that work? in this 100% affordable? Do we know that yet?
Most likely it'll be waived. However, I'm not 100% sure.
So
That's
there
another
are
good
so many
You can't have,
questions.
yeah, there are. You're absolutely right, Deputy Mayor.
That.
But all, yeah, and again, that is part of the avenue that we're going down now is to negotiate this developers agreement with the developer.
So many questions.
Are there any comments,
Yes,
other
one more,
comments?
Mayor.
Yeah.
To put the information out in library and our website, we are going to hire another full-time resource for that? Or,
No, so you're actually, we're not hiring staff for this, but you are going to have a consultant.
consultant, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 22-087?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Eglo,
yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes,
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Old business. Proposed ordinance on bamboo and other invasive species. We've asked the environmental chair, Reed Kemp, to come forward and speak to us about the proposed ordinance on bamboo and other invasive species. So thank you for coming this evening, Mr. Kemp.
Thanks a lot for having me. Yes, just a point of clarification. So on our February 8th meeting in the EC, we passed a resolution. Actually, it didn't address bamboo specifically. That was, I know that was brought up last year in the TC meeting. But what we did was we basically, it's a topic of concern amongst, environmental commissions throughout the state and the nation for that matter. And so there was interest in basically reinforcing the town's essentially town's policies vis-a-vis plantings and landscaping. So our resolution asked for a couple of things. Didn't address bamboo specifically, but it gets kind of at the same topic. And namely, and this will go into our minutes. That'll be published hopefully, I guess, in a couple of weeks for the meeting. But it basically asks that the town emphasize native species when they're plantings, with the idea that you basically would avoid invasives, which would be a subset of non-native plants, generally speaking. Excuse me. Slow down a little bit. We're also asking for basically the assembly of a list that would serve for residents and businesses, houses of worship, and so on, to guide their own landscape planning, and that would also hopefully reduce the impact on the environment from landscaping activities. I would just point out, I brought a copy with me, in the town's 2014 environmental inventory report, that cited a couple of initiatives that were already underway years ago on this issue. It also cites some data that I think it estimated that there are some 25 invasive species that are likely to be in the town, including places like the South Mountain Reservation, which we obviously prefer not to have them in. So that's really that's the goal of this resolution. The other thing we put in here, I just wanted to point out, would be, obviously a lot of people rely on their landscaping firms to basically design and maintain their properties. And so we wanted to encourage the town to, basically reach out to those businesses and sort of get some, provide information probably through the town forester about best practices. And that would be a process where we would probably need to consult not only the forester, but other experts, of which there are many, to put together a list and develop a policy. And hopefully there would be businesses that would want to sign up to more or less back that approach. And we would like to, in any way possible, to promote those businesses. So that's that's really it in summary. We didn't address bamboo specifically. That's obviously it's not a native plant. It's a very aggressively growing plant that provides great privacy protection and so forth, but it also can spread. So I mean, if there's interest to look at designing an ordinance that would somehow control species like that, that might be on private property, that would be something, we would want to talk about it. So
Thank you very much.
that's it.
Anybody have
Thank
any questions for Mr. Kelly?
So obviously somebody who has bamboo in a controlled situation, you're not gonna ask them to remove it.
No.
Not in our resolution, but I mean, there are
Right.
other communities have certainly looked at that, and there are, approaches that you could take if you wanted to,
No, I don't think you should ask someone to remove it if it's not being complained by their neighbors. So how about if somebody new moves in, they have like a really large lot and they want to put it up and put the plastic under it or however you're supposed to control it? Is that something that would be no longer allowed?
Not under our resolution. I mean, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to, promote education for residents and businesses and so forth. So, work with the town forester, work with any administration to recommend, here are the kinds of plants that are native to New Jersey. These are the ones that we definitely recommend that you not plant. If you have them on your property, you might look into removing them because they could be an annoyance to you or your neighbors. I would just point out that in our appendix, we actually included a law that passed in New Jersey a few years ago that basically states that, the turnpike authorities have to incorporate this kind of, approach so that they're not, promoting the growth of invasive species without intending to do so. So
More native.
And which is what MKW is definitely talking about in their Taylor Park plan.
The native.
Absolutely.
We had people that had been emailing us and calling in and complaining about their neighbor's bamboo coming onto their property. And that's,
So that's a-
there's a lot of problems with that. So I think it was more about the new, and as you said, educating, something like a butterfly bush. And here, I love my butterfly bush. Well, apparently it grows like a weed and it takes over other places and it's not good. You're better off with milkweed, but that's what that's
and the
about.
issue is with, on a private property, a plant could be perfectly controlled and, private gardens or landscaping, but if it's carried by wildlife or so forth into the reservation or elsewhere, then it spreads and it can create problems. So that's also the idea. But yeah, the way we approached it is really about sort of education and sort of promotion as opposed to, an enforcement. But of course, that's something that other municipalities have done. So that's another avenue to approach.
Oh, we started a plastic bag ban that way. It
Mhm,
took a long
mhm.
time, education.
Where are you gonna, can I ask, how are you gonna, where is this information gonna be? Are we gonna put it on the town website or?
Yeah, so for example, I think Summit has a list, it's a 2 or 3 page list. I assume it appears on their website. And it looks, I guess it's been more or less studied and endorsed by the town. So that would be one example. I would assume that on the website or, other partners in the town, garden clubs and so forth.
Because I certainly, with your presentation, I certainly would want it, available on our website for residents to see which plantings to stay away from, so if there's a aggregate amount of information that you're bringing forth, I mean, we should find a way to promote that information. So somebody can go on our website and say, how bad is bamboo in my backyard, So, something like that. So we should definitely take your information and make sure it's distributed.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think our resolution basically says we want to start putting that information together. So we're not saying that we necessarily have the answer, but that we want to sort of have the town support to go put that together as a resource.
So I think you have our support. Do we have our support?
Consensus? Yep.
Yeah,
Perfect.
do it, and let's get it on the website.
Thank you, Reed.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.
Sorry, Alex.
Um,
It's the last thing.
Ms. Eglo, you have, we didn't get to do it at the last meeting, so this meeting you wanted to try and get consensus from the township about the Short Hills train station safety and pedestrian improvements.
Right, thank you. So we started talking about this a few years ago, and it started up because I don't use the Short Hills train station, but I sometimes eat there at the station, but the boxcar. And there's a lot of concern about how people drive there, how people drop off their people there and pick people up, the jitney bus. We had a big meeting at the library, right, Alex?
Mhm.
And we had a lot of people show up there. And there's a lot of concerns that were brought up about the safety for the vehicles, the turnaround, the safety for the pedestrians, the commuters. One thing as easy as, you know, the driveway in and out is two separate. So you have people who just are, you live there, you're there, who are literally cut across and exit the entrance or go in the exit because it's just easier. There's a really wide boulevard there. There could be a roundabout there. There could be a median that has a crossing area there. So we had a quick plan, it wasn't so quick. Christine downstairs, the engineer, drew up some plans, and they were presented for grant. We didn't get the grant money, but now we know we do have a lot of funding for some 2022 projects. That this is something that I'm hoping that Megan, your office is right there. I'm sure you see cars doing a lot of illegal turns there, a lot of speeding. There was a woman who was killed there, unfortunately, a few years ago. That I would hope that our new traffic committee could be, our traffic consultant could be brought on and tasked to giving us a real formal plan. It didn't seem like it was going to break the bank plan, and I think this is really about safety. We brought this up at the PSAP committee at the last meeting. This is for pedestrians. This is for if people want to bike there. It's really about drop off and pick up and the speeding and the safety of our commuters. And there's a school there. There's a school right down the road. There's a large development being put there. That's going to add a lot more cars and a lot more people rushing around. So I think this is really important for our town to look, because the commuters are coming back. We've sold a lot of commuter passes. So I don't know how anybody feels about that. Jonathan?
What did PSAP say when you took it to PSAP?
That, yeah, they are very interested in talking about whatever would be pedestrian safety. But I told them that it can't go just through PSAP, it has to go through the township committee. But I think they wanted to bring it to, I don't remember, Alex, what they say. Talked about it a lot that day.
Yeah, I think we just resolved that we bring it before the township
Yeah.
committee. Yeah, for the consideration. And I think just to clarify, you're asking for Brightview to take a further look at it.
To make it an official plan, because I think this from Christine, it wasn't really a finalized plan, which could, I don't know.
I didn't quite understand that plan when you send in the township committee. It's all red. I don't know what exactly that means, so.
I know it is hard to.
Well, I will also clarify that there are two things here regarding the Short Hills train station. One is around the similar time when we had done the four-way stop or the all-way stop at Hobart and Highland, there was discussion about circulation on what is the westbound side of the Short Hills train station. Circulation in the sense that, making sure, seeing if we could get some additional parking, make a one-way street on Hobart so that we could slow people going down into Station Plaza. There were a whole host of reasons to do what was and that's the red marked up document that you're referring to. That was a change in circulation. Certainly we've added a pedestrian island over by the Crescent as well, and a crosswalk there. And then the other document was, as Deputy Mayor Eglo had stated, was a plan we had done to submit to a Safe Routes for Transit grant, in which we were looking at pedestrian improvements and really organization of the drop off at the eastbound side of the Short Hills train station. Because if you go there, it's the Wild Wild West at times, where people are parking here and parking there and pulling in at this time. And so just to be able to organize that area a little bit better and create more pedestrian enhancements, including lighting, which you don't have a lot of strong lighting in either of those areas. Most of it is incandescent. Most areas have started to switch over to LED lighting and stuff like that.
Sure, I would like to see what can be done there. Just a plan of what.
But my question is, did we ever get a analysis from the police traffic? Did we ever get an analysis from our traffic department in terms of, tickets, accidents? In other words, is this something for the police department to have input on before we go forward? Because I'd be interested in seeing where people have received tickets, where there's been accidents, and getting their input. Now, in other words, I'm not necessarily against against putting together a comprehensive plan, but it seems to me like the police department should have a, an entryway into this conversation because, just like the closure on Main Street, the first thing I wanted to do was talk to the chief about accidents or, what do you know that I don't know?
But
So,
Commissioner,
as a-
you can know that there's a problem there because they had to put Jersey barriers up to keep the cars from going in and out the wrong way. They had to keep putting those little plastic, those little skinny cones.
They're not there now.
They're not there. So they're there, they get knocked down. I think we know that, I mean, you walk to the train station.
Sure.
I
Well, I
think,
used
are you still? I think that anybody who goes there, who eats at the boxcar, sees it's dark. I'm not comfortable crossing the street. I think that just having Brightview give us a plan, which then gets looked at by the police, by our planner. This is not just Brightview gives us a plan. This is the beginning of what we can do for our pedestrians, our commuters, and it's also a beautification project. We could even have the garden club be part of how they're gonna landscape it.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents is like, I don't disagree that eventually you want a comprehensive plan, but I think that the police report on this would be essential in terms of tickets, accidents, where they've had trouble. I mean, that's personally where I'd like to start, and then take that and then work around that. That would be my 2
Mr.
cents.
McDonald?
The only thing I'll add to that in terms of conversation, it's much like what we are, and I'll give a quick example is that over the weekend, we had a pretty serious accident on White Oak Ridge Road at the corner between Clive Hills and Rippling Brook. This was this is a problem area. And so much to your point, Committeeman, is that we asked the police department for accident reports and for what, and then an engineer takes that information. The police department is not going to do anything with that information except for provide it to you, right?
Yeah.
Provide it to the people that will be able to, sort of take that information and produce something with it, like a recommendation. It doesn't have to be a full-blown report with a drawing or anything like that, but it could be something that information is then used to provide a listing of things that need to be considered in that area.
Yeah, like for instance, could we have our traffic department come at the next meeting and present on the Short Hills train station and give us their insight in terms of tickets, in terms of their management of the site?
I think what I'm trying to say is that's not really their role in this process to come before the township committee and say, there's been this many accidents.
Yeah.
What their role is to be able to provide that information and discuss it with an engineer who has the ability to then, see what that information, what you do with that information.
It's basically, I think, trying to improve the infrastructure of the current train station. So it is driven not just solely by traffic, it is also just, we have this town and we have Millburn train station that is already planned. There are parking spots there. This one has a little bit wider roads on each side. I use that train station quite a bit. So I agree with, or I understand what Mr. Wasserman is saying. Maybe we can start there, but overall, I think it's a different project. It's just to make the train station a little bit better than what it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just want to make sure that we're using the data that we have, as a starting point.
But wouldn't
But-
Brightview get the data as part of their,
Correct. Sometimes the data is the starting point, and what I'm kind of hearing is like, I don't know, like, if you're trying to use the data to justify the project, or if
Right.
you're trying to use the project, you know what I mean? Because there might not be a lot of accidents up there, and in my recollection, there's not. But what you're talking about is a visual and the potential for when you talk about the Short Hills train station and like I described as the Wild Wild West, when people are up there jockeying for position or parking here, there's no organization to the side parking lot. So, I mean, I'm happy to, whatever the committee decides, obviously, I'll be happy to go forward.
It could also be where you're just driving on the side, so there's not just wide road available for the cars to drive, like La La Land, Mr. McDonald is saying. I think it's more being proactively putting the infrastructure in place. But I would back Mr. Wasserman up whatever he's saying, so.
So we'll get the police department to give her the information, and then we'll, give that to
I'm
the
just
township
saying as
committee.
a first step, because I know that woman was killed on the other, not by the train station. just go
At a
on the
gas
other-
station.
by the gas station. And I guess my point is that, if that, if it's really, the intersection, by the gas station, I just want to make sure that we're pinpointed in where we're going to spend our money. I just want to make sure
Sure.
that we're on the money.
So the next step would be, let's talk to the police first or get the data from the
We'll
police.
get the
Get the
information
data, and
from
then
the
we can
police.
have, then we can have the traffic engineer, take a look at it and give us a proposal.
And we don't need to get those people in here to present it. We can just get
They
that
can just give us a
information and
report.
pass it on to
Yeah.
the,
Be interested in like the last three,
Sure.
maybe the last 3 years.
Terrific. Thank you. New business?
Oh, wait, I had some other questions on old business, if I may.
Oh, yeah, hold.
Alex, so what was the update on the cell tower up on JFK?
We're still waiting to see what the township is going to be doing up there. In terms of the positioning of the salt dome, the areas for the convenience center, as I call it, in terms of DPW, where you go and you take your metal or your electronics and things like that, so.
So
but
there
the
might
bid
not be
specs
a
are-
cell tower up there?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we just need to make sure that we have everything correct in terms of the bid specs and where we're putting it. We want to lay it out first.
so I thought the rough layout was already, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought the layout was done already, which had all three elements in it. Are we changing that?
No, so the only thing is that the area in which what we were looking to use on DPW has grown a little bit. So like the amount that we may be having to shift has grown a little bit too. So we just want to make sure that we have everything solidified before we go putting
For
something
DPW.
permanent, yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
so that's fine. Okay. So
Was
you're waiting for that to make sure whether the cell tower is feasible there or where else
Right,
could it be?
where
Okay,
exactly it would go.
got it.
Was there a winning bid for the cell tower?
No, the bid has not gone out yet.
Not yet. You did send in one of your administrative reports that you're putting bollards up to protect the bridge behind Millburn Standard
Yeah, it's not actually bollards.
Well-
It'll be a guardrail.
guardrail.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
that? the
It's in
works?
process, yeah. The purchase order's already been cut
Excellent.
for that.
Last thing, the telephone poles in front of the Standard and Rock and Joe's, are we removing those telephone poles? The ones, or have they been removed?
Oh, you mean from?
From our favorite best friend Complete Streets?
Yeah, so this has been an ongoing, committee woman Prupus and I met last year with JCP&L. We walked through the area with them.
I was with you.
Yep, exactly. And we had made an initial payment to JCP&L to provide us with a engineering plan for that work. I followed up, shortly after that meeting with, Mr. Garrity, who was our representative for that. Mr. Garrity had then left that position and gave me in touch with another individual. I've since followed up with that individual who has given me to another individual who took over that position. So I can assure you that I am continuing to follow up with this project, but I have not received any additional information with regard to an engineering plan for those poles.
Can we just take an axe?
Yeah.
There's no wires on them, right?
That's true, but the whole idea of that is to put the wires on them and then be able to remove most of
The
the
old
poles
ones.
on Main Street.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
While we are on old business.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
About the traffic light that we were looking to put next to, or that Hobart Gap
Yep.
near 24, is there any update on that?
No update at this point. Again, just waiting for the signed documents from the owner at, I believe it's 345 Hobart, who's been very accommodating to the township, and so I'm just giving him the time to review
Got
the documents, but it is.
So it has not even gone to county yet.
It has not.
Mr. Wasserman, any
Yeah,
old?
are you working on the sound system? I know Explore Millburn was gonna work on the sound system. Was that something that you
No, we haven't discussed that recently.
haven't?
Yeah. Because it's either, there's currently an existing sound system and the issue with that sound system is, if anybody has CDs, we can certainly use that. But the issue is being sure that, if they want us, they wanted us to take down the old,
Metal.
megaphones. just for an aesthetic purpose. If that's the case, we're happy to take those down. However, there was talk about potentially having a new sound system or delivery method put into that, but I haven't heard anything.
Speaking about well-spent money, I think that I miss the music that used to come over the sound waves over the holidays. So that's something I would love to see back.
Amen. New business?
Yeah, this is really just to bring to the attention of the Township Committee that the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum, the lease is up for renewal. That lease was done back in 2002 for initially a 10-year lease and then a 5-year lease to 2017, and then an additional 5 years to June 30th of 2022. That is up for renewal. I don't anticipate any issues with that. However, we certainly wanted to have the Township Committee have that information and be able to provide any thoughts or comments that need be. But we will put that on the future agenda for consideration.
A 5-year lease.
No, it
10?
would follow the same pattern.
Okay.
A 10-year lease with a 5-year renewal and a 5-year renewal.
For the same dollar amount, not looking to change the dollar.
They have not indicated that they're looking to change the dollar amount. But I have requested them of them their 2021 annual report so that we can share that with the Township Committee as well. But yes, nothing from their side has changed.
Okay. Terrific. Does anyone else have any other new business for this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? May I have a second? All those in favor?
All right.
Okay.
Just